Hi everybody, I'm Missy Matthews, joined by Mike Prasuta. The Steelers pick is in the first round with the 21st overall pick. They go defensive lineman Derrick Harmon from Oregon, somebody compared to Cam Hayward. In the previous 4 drafts, the Steelers have gone offense, so going back to defense in the first round.
Yeah, it's been a long time, right, going back to Cam Hayward in 2011, I believe, since they addressed the defensive line. And Missy, I think we start in talking about Derrick Harmon, the defensive tackle from Oregon. Maybe we get the context we need by looking at who the Steelers did not pick. Quarterback Shedeur Sanders, quarterback Jackson Dart, running back Omar and Hampton. A lot of talk about those positions leading into this draft. But, of course, the defensive line was front and center in a lot of discussions, in a lot of mocks. And in Derrick Harmon, the Steelers got a guy who draft analyst Dane Brugler of The Athletic had rated as his second best defensive lineman behind Mason Graham of Michigan. So they might have gotten some value at 21. Brugler had Harmon as the 16th best player available. And it's really a tale of 2 careers in college for Derrick Harmon. He's a Detroit kid. He went to Michigan State initially. He was a 350.
Do you know something about that?
A little bit. Went there as a 350-pound freshman. Now, he went in the first year of a coaching change. By the time it was his 3rd year, there was a coaching change again, and he decided maybe time to move on. Didn't want to go through another rebuild there. So he goes out and joins an Oregon program that's highly regarded, highly successful. A lot of Ducks all over this draft that are going to be all weekend. And really a breakout season for Harmon. 10.5 tackles for a loss and 5 sacks. But Missy, here's the number that jumps out is 313. That's what he weighs now.
Right.
So he's a sleeker player than he was. He's quicker. That shows up on tape. And it's not just the measurable sacks and tackles for loss. This guy generates pressure up the middle. And particularly in a defense such as Pittsburgh's, you look at the great edge pressure that the Steelers are capable of getting. Now, if you get that interior push, you take away the quarterback's step-up escape lane, and you might really be on to something defensively. So really fits the position of need and really checks a lot of boxes that you want when you're looking for a position fit this high up in the draft.
Right, and I think where the Steelers sat at 21st overall, knowing going into day 2, you currently do not have a second-round pick because of the DK Metcalf trade. Omar and Mike Tomlin, when they talked to the media this week, explained, moving up doesn't really seem possible, maybe moving back, but at the same time, some of the things happening at the beginning of the draft and then sort of towards the middle before the Steelers picked kind of opened things up where they had their pick at guys, as you said, in terms of the position of needs. And Harmon, one of the guys that they did bring in for a pre-draft visit, as you said, you can go back to anything that Art Rooney II said following the 2024 season, coming off that playoff loss in Baltimore. You think about what they gave up on the ground to the Ravens, and you immediately think of that. Yes, quarterback is still a position they're going to have to address in some form or fashion with only 2 guys on your roster. But in terms of D-line, as you said, where things kind of played out for them to not have to move, to not have to give up anything, it really did work out in their favor, and it is somebody that they clearly did their homework on throughout this entire process leading up to tonight.
Yeah, and maybe the right guy in the right place at the right time. Mm-hmm. Probably couldn't have gone back either. Didn't have to move up, but Mason Graham of Michigan, very highly regarded as a defensive tackle. He was off the board. Same for Kenneth Grant of Michigan. Same for Walter Nolan of Mississippi. So if you believe the analysts and people such as us that have been stacking these guys, they were kind of out of elite defensive tackles. This was your last shot maybe at getting one. We heard both Omar Khan and Mike Tomlin talk a couple days ago about how when there's a guy you really love, you don't want to trade away from him. You want to just go ahead and pick him. So they went ahead and checked that box. Harmon in Indianapolis didn't do a lot of the working out and physical testing, but he did do some of the drills. Mm-hmm. And Stacey Dales of the NFL Network said of his combine performance, Derrick Harmon kind of stole the show a little bit in his smooth approach, his agility, in the way he got in and out of things. Daniel Jeremiah of the NFL Network calls Derrick Harmon, quote, one of the most disruptive players in the country. He just lived on the other side of the line of scrimmage. And I think that's well stated. it's not just X number of sacks or X number of tackles for loss. Maybe Derrick Harmon could finish a little better as he continues to develop, and those numbers will rise. But he's in there messing things up. And talk to anybody on offense, the first thing that ruins a play is penetration. And I think he can deliver that.
And not saying he's going to be Cam Hayward, but when you think of what Cam Hayward, even going back to last year, was able to do on the defensive line, maybe not the numbers of sacks or different things like that, but he is a headache for a lot of guys, and it seems like this is the same type of fit. And you know, Cam's one of those guys that I'm sure will gladly take him under his wing, help him out. They released Larry Ogunjobi during free agency. So there was a numbers game that needed to be played, and this was definitely a position that needed to be addressed.
Perfect point. Cam Hayward would be a great mentor for Derrick Harmon, who Derrick Harmon has said when he watches run defense tape, he watches Cam Hayward.
And why wouldn't you?
You know, they have similar backgrounds out of the Big Ten. It's kind of a passing of the torch. Not that Cam's done just yet, but as Mike Tomlin might say, he has more yesterdays than tomorrows.
But he's an ageless wonder. We can definitely say that.
So this works on a lot of levels. Also, interesting intangible note about Derrick Harmon. His mother suffered a stroke when he was a freshman at Michigan State, and he's very close to his mother. He used his NIL money to buy her a wheelchair-accessible car. This is a kid with some character as well as some playing ability.
Right, and I'm sure, you know, when we have a chance, hopefully soon, up in our press conference room here at the UPMC Rooney Sports Complex, we'll get a chance to hear from head coach Mike Tomlin and also GM Omar Khan. The things that they will be saying about this guy probably will not shock a lot of people based off of what you have heard from him, as you said, from local media, but also
ran a 4.95 40.
In a big body,
at 313 pounds. I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, that's okay.
I think I forgot to mention that. There's just so much to like about this guy. And, you know, sometimes it comes together. You don't maybe have to be Vince Lombardi or Bill Walsh to figure out where the positions of need are and where the prospects are and where they're going to fall. And this just worked out, Missy.
Well, and needing some guys to be added through the draft at that position, knowing the studs that were in this class, how deep that position was as well, was something intriguing, especially when you're sitting at 21 and, as we said, not really able to move up if you really wanted to, but knowing that there were still a lot of great players in terms of the draft and what would work for the Steelers. So, again, they don't have a pick in the second round tomorrow for day 2, but they do have a third. It will be interesting to see based off what other teams are doing. We're not exactly keeping up to speed with all of those right now, but it's always exciting going into the second day when you can sit back and assess the first 32 that went and what other teams ahead of you need or don't need, and what other teams might be looking to do as well. I don't think a lot of us saw that trade coming early in the draft between Jacksonville and Cleveland.
No, I was kind of thinking there would be maybe a trade at the top if there was going to be one, but Tennessee went ahead and took Cam Ward. I think this is starting to play out, at least as round 1 progresses here. A lot of us thought, you know, we kind of know the players, but we don't know the order, and different teams are going to stack guys differently based on their different perceptions. But the depth of this draft, to your point about getting a chance now to just sort of let it play out and then get back in action in the third round, I think there'll still be some running back opportunity before this weekend is over. I think there'll be some wide receiver opportunity before this weekend is over. Maybe another defensive lineman. And maybe
never have too many guys that can stop the run. Maybe
a quarterback day 3 at some point. There might be some pretty intriguing guys there as a prospect type selection. I'm also curious whether or not the Steelers deciding not to pick a quarterback on the first round resonates anywhere outside the building with anybody who may or may not be coming here.
They're probably not watching the draft though, right?
Well, but they're going to know who got picked.
Somebody might tell them. Maybe.
I don't know. Just a thought.
You did talk about Derrick Harmon and what his mom meant to him and what she went through and how he was spending his NIL money to help her. He was not in Green Bay tonight to be in the green room as some of the other picks were, but we did see very quickly after he got the call from Coach Tomlin and Omar Khan, appeared he was somewhere in Michigan surrounded by family and friends. You know, you always love when you see that. They instantly pick the hat up and put it on. So be anxious to get a chance to hear from him at some point tonight and again tomorrow when he comes to town in Pittsburgh.
Yeah, Dane Brugler, the guy from The Athletic who does...
You're a big fan, we know.
I am. Him and Jeremiah, I think, are really good at this. And one of the things we heard from Mike Tomlin and Omar Khan the other day, specifically Mike Tomlin, he said, at most positions when you're picking this high in the draft, you don't worry about schematic fit, you worry about ability and upside and all that. And Brugler agrees. The summation was, quote, overall Harmon is a highly active and disruptive big man who consistently finds ways to gain freedom from blocks as a penetrating pass rusher and run stuffer. He projects as a scheme-diverse NFL starter anywhere from the 1-to-5 technique.
All right, well, perfect timing. Let's head upstairs to hear from Coach Tomlin and Omar Khan.
Everyone ready? All right, we'll have Omar open up the few comments and pass it over to Coach and open it up for questions. So.
Hey guys, how are you? Obviously an exciting day for us. I think the other day when we met, we talked about certain guys that we would not trade away from, and this is one of those players for us. The phone was ringing and we had some serious conversations, but at the end of the day, once Derrick was still there, we were excited, and it was an easy choice for us. But like I said, can't wait to get him here. He fits the Pittsburgh Steelers, and like I said, I can't wait to get him in here. Coach.
Like Omar said, man, he has Steeler DNA. For us, man, it starts inside and up front, and this is a guy that's capable of dominating that space versus the run and the pass. And so we're really excited about having him. As Omar mentioned, man, we weren't interested in considering trading away from him, and really excited about getting him in here and getting started.
What was it? How urgent, important was it to get a defensive lineman, and what do you like about this guy additionally to what you said?
Extreme urgency, to be quite honest with you. There's no substitute for young talent. You don't have a chance to fill a quality defense unless you're stout inside and up front. And this is a young guy, man, that has an opportunity to learn from the likes of Cam Hayward and put his hand in that pile and be a significant contributor for us for years to come.
Do you listen at all just in case somebody wants to blow your doors off or something, an offer?
I mean, obviously you do. We were working the phones, several picks before ours, and you listen, you have to. We owe it to ourselves to listen, and you don't know how it's going to shake out, when you're 5 or 6 picks ahead. And, you obviously listen and, you weigh things, but at the end of the day, he was just one of those players we were not going to trade away from.
The way the board shook out, we were starting to wonder if he might be there, so there was a little bit of a run on it.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, we're watching it like you guys are, and we don't know what those other teams are going to pick, and it just worked out for us.
There's a lot of defensive linemen, obviously, in this first class. Did you see something in Harmon that maybe stood out specifically related to the Steelers?
I just think he's been impressive at every step of the process for us. His tape was impressive. We had great visits with him in Indy. He came to Pittsburgh, man, we had a great day with him. Just with each interaction, we all got more and more comfortable with he was our type of a guy.
Mike mentioned him learning from Cam Hayward. How much was Cam advocating to add Derrick Harmon?
Cam's a team player. He wasn't really advocating for anyone, to be quite honest with you. But he's a quality leader, and I'm sure that he will take that personally.
Mike, you talked about the urgency at defensive tackle. How did the way the run defense struggled down the stretch inform that urgency?
The tape is the tape, and so we're behaving appropriately. You don't have a chance to have a top-notch defense unless you're smashing the run and getting after the quarterback. And this is a guy whose resume says he's capable of contributing in both areas.
You pointed out to us on Tuesday, you only have 2 quarterbacks on the roster. You want to have 4 when you get to Latrobe. Were you at all tempted to go QB with only 1 guy off the board by the time you got up to 21?
We were on the clock. We got the player that we wanted.
Throughout the draft process, there was some noise about some medical concerns about Derrick. Any red flags there when you guys met with him at all?
We wouldn't have picked him unless we were our medical staff and we were comfortable with it.
Yeah, we had him in on a pre-draft 30 visit, had an opportunity to get our docs, him in front of our docs, and we were extremely comfortable with that component.
You talked a lot recently about how you guys play a lot of sub-package football. With Derrick Harmon leading college football in pressures, how much can he contribute as a 3-down type of player?
I think that was one of the critical points I wanted to make. He's a big man. He's stout against the run. His resume and tape confirms that. But he's also a major threat in terms of getting after the quarterback, probably tops in this draft class in terms of interior rushmen. And so, we got us a big man that's capable of being significant for us in all circumstances, and that's just, that's what you want when you're talking about first round of the draft.
Obviously, he's got a lot of attractive traits, length and size and everything like that. But can you go into the football IQ part of it? It just seems like he's got it's definitely more.
His intangible qualities are very attractive. He's a smart guy. He's a football guy. He's got natural leadership skills. The people at Oregon were really blown away by his ability to fit in, and not only fit in, but lead in a short period of time. He had a similar reputation at Michigan State. And so the tangible things are obvious, but we were equally as impressed with his intangible quality, his intellect, his relationship with the game, his natural leadership qualities.
During your conversations with him, was there something that really stuck out to you, impressed you, kind of was a note in that way?
Just for a young guy, I thought he had an awesome sense of self. He was comfortable in his shoes. He had a real agenda about, what he's trying to get done within the game of football. He's got a desire to be great. All of those things were attractive.
Omar, you hit the offensive line hard the first 2 years you're here, flipping over to the defense. Is that obviously the plan when you took over here, to hammer those two areas?
Yeah, you guys have heard me talk about the big guys on both, and that just doesn't apply to the offensive side, obviously. So, yeah, we same thing. Defensive side, there was an opportunity, and those big guys they're not easy to find, and when you have the opportunity to get a good one, we're going to get them.
Like, how much versatility is there with Cam and Derrick and playing the 3 and the 5, and how do you see them being on the field at the same time?
I'm anticipating those guys working well together. I've seen Derrick dominate in terms of the pass rush from the A gap or the B gap. We've all been looking at Cam do that for a long period of time, and so I think we're going to have great flexibility there in terms of how we choose to deploy those guys.
Can he play any nose if needed?
I don't think nose is his game, but the rush component at 3 and 5 and some of those things certainly.
Obviously, throughout this process, there's still a whole draft to go. The 6 more rounds to go. But when you consider Keanu Benton and his role, do you still view him more as closer to a nose or a 3, or do you just want to get as many bodies in front as you can?
I think we got 2 quality young players, man, that hopefully going to play a long time together, man, and have a great deal of success. Both guys are versatile. Both guys are stout against the run. Both guys are pass rush capable. And so, we'll sort some of those details out once we get them on the grass and begin the process of team development for 2025.
Once you got to 21, was there a deliberation? Did you go over it, or did you just say, wow, here we are, here's our guy?
Yeah, we knew before it was easy. He was there. We were taking him.
2 more here, 2 more. For either one of you guys, obviously nobody getting picked tonight's a finished product, but where are some areas where Derrick specifically still needs to improve coming in here?
Oh, let me take it.
Wait, what was the question? Say again?
No, I was going to say, obviously nobody's a finished product in the draft, but where are some areas specifically where Derrick still needs to improve to get to the next level?
He's a young guy. I think he's 21 years old, and I think the ceiling's really high for him, and we'll see where it goes. I mean, I think we could all improve at everything we do in life, but he's got a good opportunity.
Yeah, I was getting ready to say, not to specifically avoid answering your question, but 21-year-old guy, he's got a lot of tools in his toolbox, but there's a lot of areas for improvement as he transitions from college to professional football. We'll have a better sense of it as we begin to work and see him in that setting.
What do you remember about when Harmon first got on your radar as a prospect, and what stood out to you maybe from the beginning?
We talked to him in Indy, and but we had our meetings before that, and he's just a guy that stood out. We had done a lot of homework on him. We had a lot of contacts in Michigan State, and obviously Oregon. We know some people, and it was just, he checked a lot of boxes for us.
All right, thank you guys.
Thank you, guys.
All right, that was Steelers head coach Mike Tomlin, GM Omar Khan, talking about the Steelers' first-round selection, 21st overall defensive tackle Derrick Harmon out of Oregon. And some of the things that I wrote down in terms of what they said was that the phone was ringing because teams did want to move up to that spot, but they both made it very clear this was one of the players on their list they would not trade away from. And the extreme urgency that Mike Tomlin talked about at needing to draft a defensive tackle, somebody who can help with Cam Hayward in terms of getting after the quarterback, creating havoc in the middle of the line. And this is 3 in a row in terms of Omar Khan as the GM pre-draft visitor first-round draft pick.
Yeah, some of the things that stood out to me, the need for a run-stuffing defensive lineman. Mike Tomlin said, the tape is the tape. We're behaving appropriately. Last time they took the field, the run defense didn't work so well against Baltimore. And, again, some of that intangible stuff we were hitting on just before Mike Tomlin and Omar Khan sat down to speak. It resonated with me when Mike Tomlin talked about Derrick Harmon's leadership skills, his intellect, his relationship with the game, how he's got a sense of being comfortable in his shoes and an agenda with what he wants to accomplish. These are things that are not associated with a lot of 21-year-olds. Sometimes they're not associated with people older than 21 years of age. But I think he's a guy that he knows who he is, he knows what he wants to be, and he knows how he's going to get there. And you're seeing him take significant steps both from Michigan State to Oregon and now with the Steelers. And last thing, I guess, Missy, he was asked, Mike Tomlin was asked if Harmon's more of a nose or a tackle. I think when you think of where these guys fit, you have to consider how often they're in a sub package and how often they're using 4 rushers across the front. And there will be room for Derrick Harmon. There will be room for Keanu Benton. There will be room for Cam Hayward and others.
The more the merrier.
Yeah, and I think day 2, probably day 3, I think you're going to see a bigger defensive tackle drafted just because, why stop now?
I checked to see on Twitter while they were talking, Brett Kiesel profusely excited about adding this guy to the roster. He's heading over to Ireland for a draft party there, or he might already be there. But, when Kiesel's excited about somebody like that, that's a good sign. So the Steelers will be bringing him into Pittsburgh. Again, day 2 taking place tomorrow. The Steelers don't have a second-round pick, but they have the 83rd overall, and the 3rd maybe will be here just in case. But we'll also get a chance to hear from Derrick Harmon when he gets here, so that'll be exciting. We can talk about that and much more as the Steelers continue to plug away throughout the 3-day draft weekend and add to that roster. So good job on day 1. We'll see what comes with day 2.
Yeah, a little intrigue today, but I think it worked out the way a lot of people were hoping it might.
Right. And it works. So thanks so much for joining us. That's going to do it from the UPMC Rooney Sports Complex. We'll see everybody back here tomorrow night for day 2.